Welcome to the Honest Dog Breeder Podcast with me, your host, Julie Swan, where each week we dive in to discuss all things dog breeding so you can build a breeding business you love, producing dogs that fulfill their owners' dreams. I believe you can have an honest dog breeding program that also pays the bills. So throw those pods in your ears while you're cleaning kennels. I'd love to join you. All right, well, welcome. Thank you for joining me today, Dr. Moffett. And this is my favorite vet. She's been with me for, I think since I started breeding. I mean, you worked with Buster before he was a stud dog.
True. Yeah, it's been a while, so
it was just neat. But you were doing the clinics where I was working on the weekends.
Oh, with the
that's
feed store.
Where I
Yes.
met you.
Yeah, exactly.
Just amazing.
Yeah.
So anyway, so tell us a little bit about you and how you got into this wonderful line of work.
It took me a while to figure out what I wanted to be. I was a lot of things beforehand. I taught nature classes to kids. I got a master's in weed science, learning agriculture.
What exactly is a master's
in weed science? I know. It's not the.
You weren't just testing products.
No, I was not. No.
Are you talking about weeds
like out in the cotton field? Yeah.
Like how to remove them for plants.
Different. Yes. Yeah.
Sense.
Different ways. And then after being out in the cotton field in Arizona for a summer or two, I was like, this isn't
just too miserable.
Yeah.
So you just go out there checking weeds and like seeing.
Yep.
Oh, would that be eventually leading into like creating pesticides? Is that kind of
that sort of thing? We were trying to find more green ways, I guess, to do things, like using different levels of water to control weeds or other things that you can manage to try to keep it. Yeah.
That's neat.
It is neat. It's fun.
Yeah. And very helpful in Arizona because our weeds here are ridiculous. But anyway, so then you got bored with that.
Yeah. And then I became a veterinary technician because I'd already kind of played around with the idea of being a vet or working with animals and that sort of thing. So I did the technician thing for a couple of years and then realized monetarily I needed to make a little more money. So I went to vet school, and luckily the place I was working kind of pushed me towards it too, or it's going to help me out as well. So,
kind of encouraged it and was supportive of the journey.
Yeah, and I came back afterwards and worked there for a little bit. So
that's cool.
Yeah,
it's really good. Yeah, and you still care. How do you still care? Doesn't it get annoying, or what's worse, the people?
No, well, there's parts of it that I was thinking about this the other day because there's parts of it that are good because where I work now, I've been there for like 10 years, so I know a lot of the people really well.
Sure.
I know their animals, so in some ways that's good because I know how to talk with them. I know what's important to them. I know the animals and what's going to work for them. But some ways it's not because you get kind of biased towards them in certain ways, and it's hard because my job is to present information to people and to try to let them figure out what's best for them and their animal based on everything that's going on.
But it's so hard for us to interpret all the results. So you have to also give an interpretation.
Right. Well, I guess that's true.
Hard.
Yeah, but you don't want to. I mean, it's hard not to. I mean, there's certain, like, even you as a breeder, I'm sure you want to convince people or show people that there's better ways to do these things. There's things that they should be paying attention to that are more important to.
No, exactly. There's things you wish they understood, and then how do you present that information to them without insulting them, but also because they don't know.
Right, exactly. Yes, because and I'm sure you get the same thing. People, well, I read on Google that this is what, is what we should be doing. And
yes,
it's some ways, there's good information out there, but there's a lot of ways that, you don't want to insult the people by saying, that's not.
But on the other hand,
you want to make sure that the animal's healthy and taken care of.
For sure.
Yeah.
Sure. So. And it's probably hard too when people don't want to pay for the extra diagnostic tests and some other stuff.
Yes. But I mean, a lot of people say, well, if you don't have the money, you shouldn't have an animal, which I guess in some ways I kind of agree with, but not 100%. I mean, they're great. They're one of the best parts of my life. So I don't want to, there are ways you can work around it. I mean,
I agree.
Yeah. Things that you can do to.
Try to make it work. Right. I always feel like there's probably a certain emergency fund that everybody should have for.
Right. Yeah. Because they're not, they're going to get in trouble. They're going to eat something they shouldn't, or run through something they shouldn't. So,
So what are like some of the biggest things that you see in maybe like new puppy owners that you wish people understood, right? So just like kind of we were saying with the, things they don't know. How do you?
Right. Well, like vaccinate. Yeah. Like we were saying, because at least around here, parvovirus is horrible.
Oh,
I mean, it's
awful.
really bad. Yeah. So you want people to know how important it is for them to go through the series and get the vaccinations. And when they're new puppy owners, sometimes they just think, oh, they got vaccines, so they're done. And it'd be nice that people knew it's not just a single vaccination that covers their dog. And there's certain requirements like age and other status.
Yeah, mom's immunity, and then it's so varied, and then it's varied inside the litter. So it's always just so hard to know.
Yeah.
I always find that sometimes the bigger puppies are more susceptible. Oh, it's because the bigger dogs my theory, I don't know if this is any weight, but my theory is that the bigger dogs got more colostrum, so they got more immunity. So sometimes they're immune when you vaccinate, whereas the littler ones didn't get as much. And I have a theory that their immunity leaves them sooner.
Certainly could work. Yeah.
But I have nothing to back it. It's just a thought.
Well, that's why we need to do a series, because that we don't know when it's going to run out and when the mom's immunity is going to stop.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It seems easy enough to spend the money to get the vaccines, but it is hard for the buyers. Because I think one thing I tried to explain to them, is how that passive immunity peters out over time, but then it's different for each disease we're vaccinating against. And they just sometimes are like, woo, it's just right over their head.
And it's a new puppy and you're excited about
it. You want to take it everywhere.
Yeah, to the dog park where they're going to pick up.
Yeah.
And
you read about all the socialization, you're like, take them everywhere. And you're like, yeah.
Maybe once they're
like a little bit. Yeah. What other stuff is frustrating that you see that you just wish new owners knew? I'm gonna go turn off my robot vacuum.
The puppies are a lot of work, I guess. I mean, in terms of house training, and they're going to be chewing on things, and people need to remember that that's part of having a puppy.
Pretty normal.
Yeah.
They need ways to manage that, I think.
Yeah.
Do you, when they come to you, like, how are you finding this information out? What does that look like?
Because it's frustration on their part. They're like, well, he's just peeing everywhere, or he's peeing all the time, or I take him outside and then he comes back in and pees, or things like that. So it's frustration on their part, I guess.
Sure, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Are they looking to you for a solution?
Yeah. Hopefully they'll, between me and the technicians and everybody reiterating. Everybody hopefully helping them, they'll figure something out. So
that makes sense. I do, but it like says, but you're not a trainer. Like that wasn't part of your training, but it falls. But people come to you for that information.
Yeah, a lot actually.
Yeah.
And so that's
something where breeders could kind of help a little bit more and take some of that load off of your plate by preparing our owners.
Well, and too, I mean, because your breed, that this, these dogs are going to chew everything in the house versus other dogs that may be,
right. Well, I know like what crazy mine are prone to, I think.
Yeah, exactly. So if you can prepare people.
Right? You're probably going to jump on your table and eat your dinner.
Right. Yeah. I know.
I have thought about amputating legs occasionally.
Just
we just get them off the counter, right? It's good. Do you find more issues with people with purebred dogs versus mixed, or do you think the mindset of the owners is different? CBT different there.
It seems like people with purebred dogs are a little, they've thought things out a little bit more.
Interesting.
I mean, because they obviously went looking for a certain breed that they wanted, so they kind of know, they've at least looked it up to see what are this dog's personality types, and so they seem a little bit better trained and a little bit better educated on what to expect and what the dogs need. So
so that's actually
that's good. Yeah,
that's good.
Yes, exactly.
Do you find one of my thinking is that like the rescue people, the primary reason in rescuing is to help with this population problem, but not a whole bunch of thought goes into the actual type of dog they're taking in the shelter or the rescue. And but I also find that their expectations for what the dog will do tend to be less. Do you find
I guess that's true too. Yeah.
Do do you find the purebred like owners or even the doodle people that have like bought the doodle for a specific thing, do you find them to be a little bit more like, you need to fix this? Like, are they put more pressure on you?
Yeah, and I know the dog too sometimes. I mean, to say, this is what I have, this is the picture I have in my mind of what I want this dog to be able to do and to look like, and
Gotcha.
And it's not always, I mean, there's variability even in the same litter. I mean, some of them are going to be
80 pounds, 40 pounds.
or well behaved versus eating off the table. It's just, it just depends on the dog. And hopefully people, I don't know, hopefully they realize that there's some variability and that they're going to hopefully get to love the dog no matter what they do. So,
right, be a little bit more patient. I think sometimes it's hard to, like, you don't buy your children.
Right.
And so like you get what you get, but on the same note, like you kind of know its problems because you have them too.
Yes, exactly.
And so like my daughter is my problem, right?
Yeah.
So that's just what it is. Right? But I feel like with the, the purebred dogs, in a lot of ways, like you're buying, or even just buying from a breeder, it doesn't have to be purebred, but buying from a breeder, you have this, it's perfect because I paid for it.
Right.
And
yes,
so
these
I
expectations.
do think those expectations are so high. And I think that is pretty stressful.
Yeah. And I mean, even like good breeders, like you, that go through and do the genetic testing and do the OFA x-rays and all this background. They're animals, they're creatures.
Right.
There's no guarantee that everything's going to.
Yeah. And there's always those weird one-offs.
Yeah.
One thing that happened recently, we were in a discussion, is someone's the hip scores didn't come back as well as they liked.
Yeah.
And it was looking to be a breeding dog. And the recommendation was that you can have the dog go swim and it will fix the hips and you can redo the x-rays. And I was just kind of curious your take on it. I have my thoughts on it, but I see that face.
I don't, that's right. I don't think, because that's muscle. You're changing muscle. You're
Correct.
not changing the bone.
You're not
structure.
changing genetics.
Yeah, and the structure of the bone and the structure of how the hips fit together.
I would think it's still not the right choice for breeding, because correct me on this if I'm thinking incorrectly, but if a dog has hips that are good, whether or not they're in shape, that should be fine on an x-ray, right?
Right.
So improving bad hip scores is not the same as a dog that's out of shape.
Yeah, I mean, it may be able, like, if they're in better shape, it may be able to compensate for problems with the hips, but it's not going to necessarily change the underlying structure.
So it seems like, to me, a management technique for a dog that has bad hips, as opposed to a way to make a dog that wasn't breeding quality.
Yeah, I don't think you can change that part. I mean, you can, you can adjust for.
That's kind of what I was
problems
thinking too. Yeah, it would be something helpful if the dog was suffering.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, sure, exactly.
Yeah. What are going into the black side of things and dark side? What do you think? What are things that you see breeders maybe make mistakes on? That people come in with issues, whether that's breeding, like what are some things that you find to be the worst that people have to deal with, that if the breeder had just pulled that out of the lines, it would have been better?
I think some, you really want me?
Yeah, I do. I want the honor. You can hit me with it. It's okay.
I think sometimes like going back to the vaccination thing, breeders have, some biases. I mean, it's like I had a dog that had a reaction to this vaccine, so this vaccine is inherently bad. Okay. And it's not always the case. And I mean, yes, there are times and places for certain vaccinations, but if a dog is in an area where that disease is really prevalent, where this dog is going to be in, like, running around in the water where this disease is spread, then sure. So I mean, and people will often trust the breeder more than
we've been working with,
because you've been working. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. So when I come into the room and say, well, your dog should have this, and they're like, well, no, because my breeder said that's really bad, and so that gets a little bit iffy. But I mean, but then again, there's not a best. Well, no, there's not a best way to do things. I mean, you can you can change protocols, or you can change the way you do things, I guess, based on what their biases are, what the, I mean,
Do you think it's workable? I always
think it's
get
workable.
worried
Yes.
about
Yeah.
over vaccinating. Like I
Right.
wish
Right.
that I wouldn't have to vaccinate my dogs, but one
Yeah.
time when they turn 16 weeks.
Right.
But I just
Yeah.
can't trust my property at this point not to have
Right.
parvo. So like
Well,
I need to
And maybe if you live like, I don't know,
on a concrete haven.
in Canada or something, it might be, I mean, but here, unfortunately, it's hard. Yeah.
It's not worth the risk to me. And
Yeah.
I always have to go back and think I've never had a dog that was fully vaccinated for parvo get parvo.
Yeah.
And so I mean I
Yeah.
can't say it
But
doesn't work.
They work, but it's just, but there's so many things that can.
Sure.
I mean, like we were saying, when they're knowing when the mom's immunity wears off, there's going to be this.
No, it's like thrown out of the wall.
Yeah, there's going to be this period. That they're vulnerable, and you just don't know. So.
Yeah. Anything from a breeding perspective?
Some of these ones with the flatter faces, I wish it's hard because I think sometimes there's more of a focus on what the dog looks like than actual health concerns, which are worrisome. Because then there's things I can do surgically to correct these problems, but maybe if breeding was more geared towards
preventing the vet bill.
preventing that problem in the first place.
Yeah.
So,
That makes a lot of sense. There's been a lot of discussion on those among
and the same with the ones with the flat faces, with the nose that's so closed they can't breathe. I mean, they're gonna have respiratory and heart problems before they become adults.
Where does the heart problem come in from that?
Just breathe, because the respiratory, they're working harder to try to get oxygen in, so the heart has to kind of help try to help
pumping less oxygen.
Yeah.
So it has to
tries
pump it faster.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Oh, that's kind of nuts.
Yeah.
Anything else management wise that you see, like overgrown toenails or anything ridiculous where you're just like, oh, I just wish people knew about this?
Yeah. You want like grooming things? Yeah. I recently took in a stray poodle thing. They're a lot more maintenance. They're high maintenance. I didn't realize I've had these like short-coated or short-haired dogs, and they've been, give them a bath every now and again, and they're fine. But she is a whole nother story. So I mean, so yes, if people need to be prepared, I guess, for that. And yes, trimming toenails and watching ears and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So,
Do you recommend cleaning ears frequently?
And if they're not having problems, I usually don't.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, maybe, wipe out the inside.
If they look gross.
Yeah, but not sticking in lockdown in there.
Right.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Do you think the floppy eared dogs are worse or the erect ears?
I guess I see it more in floppy ear dogs, but not. Supposedly that doesn't factor in. It's based on the medical.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be sure because you could think the floppy can't release it, but on the other hand, you would think you're almost like cupping it when you're running.
Right. Well, with the floppy, it's because it's the nice, warm, moist environment in there, so the
that makes
bacteria and
sense.
the yeast really love it. So I think that there's some component of that. I don't know, but yeah.
Oh, that's crazy.
So.
You had mentioned earlier about drives and how people are aligning kind of with the wrong dog sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And how does that come to play?
I think, well, a lot of it is people who I think want a dog to sit at home with them on the couch, and then they adopt this dog, and the dog is running around tearing the house apart because it has all this energy and these things that it wants to do. So I've had people relinquish their dogs, or talk to us about saying, I can't keep this dog anymore. Yeah.
Sure.
Or they were like, well, I need to put him on medication to sedate him. And I'm like, well, that's not, you're just covering up the problem. You're not, and that's not a good life for the dog, just to be sleeping all the time because you want it to be calm. So,
is that I guess that's within your realm of abilities is to allow for that, but it does kind of feel like a weird ethics thing.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
It feels like I'm, giving them some pill when it should be.
My kids are annoying.
Yeah,
Go to
exactly.
sleep.
Give them, a shot of whiskey and some Benadryl. But
we're fixing the teeth problems. That's right.
Yeah. But it gets, it's hard to tell people, well, I mean, you need to change your lifestyle or you need to accommodate for this dog. It's not like there's not some quick medical fix I'm going to be able to give you to make this dog
perfect, right?
Yeah,
It's not going to be well trained because I gave it. Yeah. Do you find that people, if they love the dog, they're willing to spend more money if it's a good fit? Like, so if the dog's drives align with their lifestyle, then do you find that they're more willing, because they love the dog more, they're more willing to spend money on vet care?
Yes, I think, I mean, not always. It depends on what
some people just
what people
do
have.
it.
Yeah. Because they feel responsible. But I do if they fit, if it's, you know, they're like, well, this is the best dog or I've ever had, or he's such a sweetheart, I don't want to give up on him. So I do, people seem to be willing to go a little bit farther for
sure. So I guess it would be in our interest as breeders to make sure we fit those families correctly, because that ensures that they'll spend more money on the dog when it needs
and the dog will get the care that it needs down the road, hopefully. So and I guess and mixing dogs too, because I recently had a dog come in that had been attacked by another dog in the house and gotten pretty chewed up, and so and that's always a difficult thing to talk to people about too, is like, you know, you don't want them to give up on either on the dog that is supposedly aggressive, because there could be lots of medical things and underlying things going on with it. But I mean, maybe this dog just needs to live by itself, but I don't know. So I don't know how you guys can, I guess you can get some sense, but when they're young, they usually probably get along with everybody. So it's hard.
It is very breed dependent though, you know. I find that with, you know, my short hairs, they pretty much get along with everybody. They're obnoxious. Like the puppies, like the older dogs are like, oh, go away, you know. So I do help people say, hey, give priority. A lot of people give priority to their new puppy because like the delicate baby.
Right.
But it really, I mean, maybe when you have like human children, yes. But I feel like with dogs, to have them respect the older dog first. You know, put the puppy in the crate. Don't lock up the adult dog for being calm.
Right. Yes.
You know,
exactly.
so I do try to prep people that way. But I do think there are probably situations where you just can't have, you know, certain two dogs together just don't work.
It just
and that's really hard for people to make that decision.
Yeah, that sucks. Yeah, it does suck.
Do you find with euthanizing, is it how does that go down? Is there anything from that we should know as breeders that would make it?
Not necessarily. I don't know. I don't think there's much that you.
I know we're pretty much the other end of it, but I was wondering, do you find people are more comfortable euthanizing a dog they're not in love with?
Yes. It seems that way. Although it's hard for me to tell sometimes, because sometimes people will come in and they don't show any emotion, and you think, oh, well, they don't really care, but then, you know, as they're leaving, they'll tell you some story about them, and then everybody handles it differently, so it's hard to say. But
we always get called after the fact.
To
replace them.
True. Yeah, that's
you know,
true.
So that's always weird. So we have a gauging the grieving and whether or not. Sometimes they want a dog that we can't give them because I can't clone what you just lost.
Right.
You know?
Exactly.
So sometimes there's that.
Yeah.
I know it's tough. Tough. Do you find most people stay in there, or is it pretty mixed? I was just curious on that one.
Most people stay. Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. That's another hard thing though. I mean, it's because I have my biases on whether people are maybe doing things too early or waiting too long, but they're the ones that have to live with this afterwards, and they're the ones that have to deal with this. So that's another place where you have to kind of step back and say, you know, this is your decision. I'm not gonna.
That's hard. How do you handle? Because a lot of times, well, not a lot of times. Occasionally, I get called as a breeder, and they'll be like, "My GSP is dying of this, and I want to get another puppy." And it's like they're overlapping the process, and I know that's part of them coping because they're afraid to be at a loss. And I know it's weird to have an empty home if you only have one dog. Like, no clicking nails is creepy.
Right.
Yeah,
that's true.
But like, how do they? I've had people ask me, "How do I know when to put my dog down?" And I'm like, it's hard.
There is no, I mean, even after, how long have I been doing this? 20 years? There's no black and white answer to that.
Yeah.
That's what you just have to try to gauge and say, well, the times that they're happy and that they're feeling good are not there anymore.
Yeah.
And it's also, I mean, and that's the people side of it's harder sometimes too, because people have a lot of connections or attachments to their dog. It's like, this was my husband's dog and he passed away or something like that.
Wow.
And so this is my last connection, and so you have to not convince them, but help them come to terms with the fact that it's okay to let them go, it's okay to euthanize, or if you want to wait a little bit longer, that's okay too. I don't know, it's a tough thing to deal with the people side of it.
Do you feel like dogs give you that look though? Like they know when they're ready?
I think they kind of show signs. Yeah. I mean, a lot of people say, well, he's not out. I mean, or maybe it's more with cats than dogs, but they'll go and hide, or they just don't want to be part of the house anymore. And
Interesting.
dogs, I guess, will do it a little bit. They'll just kind of set themselves aside. Yeah. So that's, I guess, one way to kind of judge.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I remember Buster, like he just looked at me.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I hate everything.
Yeah.
That's going on.
And if he was part of your
Oh,
life forever.
so
So so and that's the thing too, I have to keep remembering is that this animal may come in looking fine and looking healthy, but I don't know, I haven't seen them at home. I haven't seen what the owners are seeing and what the people are seeing. So you can't just say, well, you're putting them to sleep too early when you don't know. Yeah, what's going on.
It's always kind of, it hit me when I was like, I don't know, like 20. After 20 years, it was always like you'd have a dog and at some point in time you would have to put them down.
Mhm.
But like we don't put people down.
Right. Yeah.
At least not supposedly.
Yes.
And so,
Not legally.
right.
Yeah.
So like, do you think that like letting a dog naturally go to its end, is there like a place for that? Or is that, I know it's such a weird question, but it hit me that it's so odd that like this is like a standard part of the ownership.
Yeah, having a dog. I know. I would certainly much rather, and I'm sure most people would much rather.
Choose.
Yes, yeah, when they pass on their own. Although sometimes that's hard too, because watching them go through that last bit is difficult. But I know I actually never thought too much, but that's true. Why do we just assume that's naturally part of? I guess because it's hard for us to see them. I mean, because we've been there for their whole life. We've seen them as a puppy. We've seen them be active and all the things that they love to do, and now they're reaching a point where they can't do those things anymore. And I don't know if it's us putting our feelings on them, saying, oh, they're sad, and I don't know. I don't know why we just, or it's hard. It's just, I guess it's hard for us to see them be painful and suffer. And yeah.
But I always put myself in their heads, and I think, well, I put myself in my head and think if I was that, I would want them to take me out. I'm still getting around.
Right. Yes, exactly. And I'm curious. And the only thing, I guess, sometimes it helps me to think that these animals don't completely understand what's happening. I hope they don't understand what's happening, because it's really hard. Yeah, it is really hard. Yeah.
Do you find that people over personify their pets? Like, not that we would downplay dogs.
Right.
Or even go like, oh, they don't have souls or anything like that. No. But I will feel like some of my dogs don't have souls. So I'll put that out there. Some of them are really like, oh, okay, there's something inside. I don't know.
Yeah. Or they're affiliated with the other side.
They're with the other side.
Yeah, no.
Those were all my socks. Man.
Yeah.
No, but do you see like people over personifying? And then does that, I mean, I would imagine to some degree it's endearing. Like I want my people to feel like their dog is a part of their family and everything. But
I know, but in some ways you can't. I mean, if I would love it if everybody could afford to do everything for their animal and still be able to do everything that they wanted. But you have to be realistic. If it comes down to not being able to feed your family and taking care of doing something for the dog, or I mean, there are probably things that, I mean, some of these dogs come in with illnesses that there probably is something that could be done. I mean, at some university or some
research university across the country. Yeah.
But in reality, it's probably not something that is going to make much, I mean, it's going to buy you much time, I guess. And helping people realize that, yes, I know you love this animal and you want to do everything you can for them, but you can't always. I mean, that's what makes, again, a lot of people are like, well, they're my children, you know, because I don't have kids. And and that, I think, makes them feel sometimes more, I don't know if it's guilt or not. I don't think it's guilt. I think it's just they want to do everything that they can.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you see the trend? Because I'm seeing, which is great for dog breeding business, I can't complain, but people are having less children or not having children, and they're getting the dog in lieu of having kids.
Yeah.
And do you think, is it just harder on them? You know, because like you think like my children, I expect they'll outlive me. I don't have to watch them die.
Right.
You know,
exactly.
but I can see pouring myself into a dog.
Yeah.
In that capacity.
And it makes it tough. It does. Yeah.
Any other things you think of that breeders should be aware of? Do you want to like slap any of us? No. They're like, no, it's not that bad yet. When breeders come in to see you, I mean, you don't have to tell them how obnoxious I am, but other breeders.
Others, yes.
Are there things that you wish we would come at you in a better way? Or is there things that maybe breeders do that kind of rub you the wrong way and frustrate you, or anything that we can do better?
I think it's tough because
that smirk.
No, I didn't mean to sound like smirky. No, I think that I don't know why there's this animosity. I mean, why there's this bumping of heads because
it feels like tension.
Yeah, and it feels like it's like a power struggle. Like I know more than you know, and but I've been working with this breed for, and there's something to come from both sides. That's what I find frustrating is that. I mean, there's people that come in with harebrained ideas about what should be done, but that should, who knows whether there's some reality or some truth to that, but this is also your chance. You're not there to just say, oh, well, that's stupid, because that's not going to help. I mean, that doesn't make anything better. So if maybe we as veterinarians could step off of or get out of it.
You guys have a really tall pedestal.
We do sometimes, yes, or we think we do, I guess. Yeah, but it doesn't help, and I guess that's what.
I think that was what was always so helpful with me is that I have those wild ideas sometimes, and you don't just like look at me and roll your eyes and say, "Julie, that's retarded."
I do that behind your back.
Thank you.
No.
I was hoping that.
No,
but you at least listen.
Yeah.
And sometimes they're dumb ideas and you're just like, well, Julie, that won't work, and here's why. And I'm like, that's where all your medical training really pays off.
But if you don't have someone that you're comfortable doing that with, or if you guys come in as breeders and vets are just constantly saying that, you're putting you down,
we just go somewhere else.
Or you just start telling your clients, So, I mean, some of that has to come across to them. These vets are just, out for your money and just want you to do all these things. Yeah. And we, I mean, I'm sure we have biases as well as veterinarians. Oh, these people are just, they're just breeding because they want to make money and they don't really care. But there's
definitely a spectrum of breeder.
Right. But there are plenty that, like you, who are interested in finding ways to make things better for the dog and for the people. So
I think sometimes we come in a little entitled, and I catch myself in that sometimes. Not like, but I get bulk discounts on dog food. I get bulk discounts on this. The only thing I don't usually get bulk discounts on is, but why? Why would I? Right? Because it's an individual dog basis, and so sometimes I think, I think that's where a lot of the rub comes in too, is like everything is expensive. We want to do it, but we have X amount of dogs. And so we want to be cost effective at the same time.
Right.
But then again, this is our business. And it would be like if I sold trucks but didn't do car maintenance, that looks bad. right?
Yeah,
And so there is this like weird tension of trying to find that sweet spot of how much do I do at home? How much do I go in for care with? And then like the last minute appointments, those are really hard.
Well, and to some extent, I mean, you've been taking care of dogs for a while, so you do have a base of knowledge that, I mean, that you can, I mean, and so when you come in, I know I don't have to go through, start at the beginning. I sure say, this is what we're gonna do, or, you kind of know what to.
I kind of get to the fork in the road, and then you can kind of help me pick the path.
So,
and that's what's been really helpful. But I think that's also part of building that longer term relationship with your particular veterinarian.
Yeah.
Like, you can have them over coffee and a podcast,
There
right?
you go.
Like,
talk about the Roomba.
there you
go. But I know people need to, and that's the thing. It's hard. It's finding somebody that you feel comfortable, that you trust.
Sure.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different philosophies too with different veterinarians. Like, have you seen, I think you got that new guy in the clinic who like just got out of school, well, recent-ish, you know? Do you find like the training is changing, or, I mean, have you seen anything differently or different styles? Like, I know you try to approach things with the least, you're not like, go get your little mortise and pestle and make all this. I mean, you use medication, fine, but you're not overdoing it.
There's a wide range of work, and I think provide people, because I mean that's the tough thing. You go to school and you learn like this is the best way to do things, and but then you come out of school and it's like, well, I don't have $4,000 to do all this work.
Sure.
So you have to kind of learn, okay, what are some different things that I can do to make this work? And I think they're starting to teach that more in school, that maybe this is what's called gold standard, but it's okay to try other things, or to.
They're maybe taking like a tier approach.
Yeah.
Give you options. That makes it easier.
And the hard thing too is they expect you to know all these different breeds and all these different disciplines, and then you come out of school and it's like the behavior stuff, we don't get any training on that. I mean, that's a big part of what people need.
And what are the odds you have a bunch of dogs while you're going through vet school?
Right.
Like, oh my gosh, homework.
Yes. So it's, I think that they're starting to realize that there's a broader range of what people need to know, and a broader range of what you can expect.
Sure.
But and I guess, I don't know if you were asking too about, like, there's some people that are much more holistic about things, whereas other people that are.
Do they teach any of that?
We got some. We
What
got
kind
a
of
little
stuff?
bit. We got, I guess it was kind of acupuncture and Chinese, a little bit of Chinese.
Really?
Well, only because I think one of the instructors had recently come out of acupuncture school, so it was maybe 1 or 2 lectures out of 4 years.
Pretty interesting though.
It's at least something. Yeah, at least exposes you to that there's all these.
What do they
different ways.
recommend it for?
I think hers was a lot of more large
horse,
animal stuff. Yeah. But I mean, even I've learned more about, like, there's a chiropractor here in town that will adjust animals and use cold laser, and there's acupuncturists. I mean, and it's mostly through the clients, because they'll say, well, I looked into this and I want to try this. I'm like, that sounds great. Sure, let's give it a try. So it's mostly, I guess acupuncture, I think of more with like chronic pain type things.
Interesting. Yeah, bottled up knots and stuff like that to release that tension. That makes sense. With teeth cleaning, is that, I mean, it always sounds like that's a racket, like that's the great cash cow for vet clinics to do teeth cleaning. But I think it's a thing though. I mean, dogs having some pretty gnarly teeth is a thing.
Well, they don't brush, I mean, do you brush your dogs?
I
don't either, and I know it because there was this big thing in the veterinary literature too recently about anesthetic cleanings versus awake cleanings. So, which is, and they're starting to realize, I guess you can do. I mean, it depends again, of course, on the dog.
Sure, completely.
So, but it's hard for people to understand. You as a human go to your dentist, they clean your teeth, and you're done.
But I know what they're doing, like
right. But they also, but with it, I'm like,
so
I'm putting your dog under anesthesia. So there's, that's the anesthesia part throws people off, and then there's most of them are older dogs. So I'm like, well, I I would like to have blood work beforehand to make sure that they're healthy to go
Sure.
under anesthesia. And then there's other parts of the anesthesia, like keeping them on fluids, so their blood pressure, and so that it gets expensive. And people are like, well, it's just his teeth, but it's
Right. Like I can go to the dentist for $80,
Right.
but this
is
way
yeah.
more.
Yeah.
Is there any techniques you think for like cleaning at home that would keep that
Mhm.
down?
If people, I mean, brushing.
You actually brush your teeth.
You
at
do,
home?
yeah. They say if you can do it every other day or a couple times a week, it'll make a big difference. So
The enzyme
Mhm.
toothpaste
Enzymes
is the
up,
key.
yeah, yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I always
Yeah.
found this maybe shouldn't be on public podcast,
But,
but
yeah.
I raw chicken bones.
and that
It works amazing.
Yep. And there's a website called the Veterinary Oral Health Council
Mhm.
that they have tested all the different additives and treats and things out there too. And so that's a good place to go if you want to find a list of
I'll
stuff that
find that
actually,
link.
that actually works.
So they're just testing out different
Mhm.
things.
Does
That
it
makes
does it
sense.
keep them from building up calculus tartar? So,
There's got to be a toy out there that they love to chew on if you put that toothpaste in
I
there.
know. People, yeah. Because it's expensive, and if you have to do it, I mean,
Just the dog breath, to be honest with you, is
Yeah.
worthy enough to
that's
find a
some of them are
solution.
pretty. When you walk into the exam room and you're like, oh yeah.
Is that usually an abscess? Or
Not always. Sometimes it's just. I had a dog the other day. I mean, we just pulled out this piece of calculus that was like a big rock, and her
Oh.
tooth was in the middle of it. So I mean, it's just
oh,
it
man.
can, it's pretty gross.
That's quite gross. I found the grain-free food is worse.
Oh,
It builds up
yeah.
tartar a lot faster, or
That's
whatever you want to
interesting.
call it. Is it calcified? Whatever.
Yeah, calculus. Yeah,
Calculus. Is what you call it. Not to be confused with math.
right.
Right.
Both are bad. No, math isn't bad. No. Yeah.
Calculus could be bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that's because I know my grain-free dogs, my short hairs have to be on grain-free, and my rat terriers, it's like too hot for them to eat the grain-free.
Oh,
And so, but I get the runs on my short hairs if they do, so I have both kinds of food.
well, and that's the other thing too. I mean, people with food, everyone's like, well, what's the best food? And it's like, there isn't a best food. So
You find it's very dependent.
yeah, and I often I'm like, well, what was your breeder using? Because you guys know. I mean, you guys have been through-
Sometimes.
yeah, or it helps you to know because then your animals can do it. They're going to be healthier.
I always find it's about 4 years. Like you can pretty much feed your dog cardboard for 4 years and you'll have no problems.
Right.
But there's that threshold where 4 years of cardboard will now start making a lot of problems.
Yes.
And you see it sooner in breeding dogs. Not that I've been feeding my dogs cardboard,
Well,
but you know.
whatever the fine. And then
I have I've tried a variety of foods, and so I did finally get to what I like, but but you can see the difference. I saw the difference in coats and shedding and teeth and even their general demeanor.
Yeah, it does. It helps. It makes a big difference.
Do you find you ever like encourage people to keep looking like, hey, you probably not on the right food, or is that just not really your area?
No, I mean, that's nutrition's part of it too.
Sure.
Yeah. If a dog comes in and its coat looks really dull and they got oily skin, I mean, they're not, and they just
When
look,
you pet them and it's white.
yeah.
Mhm.
Then I might encourage people to explore other food options. Yeah.
They're pretty receptive.
Yeah. Because I mean, they notice too. I mean, they're like,
Sure.
well, it doesn't look as healthy as maybe good. So.
A lot of people just think that, well, when I go to the grocery store, I'll just buy dog food too.
Yeah.
And they don't really know that that's
Not necessarily.
what they don't want to sell in the grocery store.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense.
And I know, like with you, with the space and neuters stuff too. I mean, I don't know if that's something that you guys usually get into as breeders, or like waiting a little bit. till
Oh,
they're
yes,
older.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I put it in my contract as a
Yeah.
way to you can't force people to do anything, right?
Right.
Once you sell them the dog, generally it's property, and dogs are property, and we don't really want to give dog rights because I don't need to be sued by my neighbor on
That's-
behalf of my dog.
Yeah.
But nevertheless,
Yeah.
it does create kind of sticky situations. But so I just encourage them by, canceling my genetic health guarantee if they do it earlier.
Right.
You
That
know,
makes sense.
but
Yeah.
hopefully we're breeding dogs that don't have those problems anyway, so it's almost moot.
Yeah.
But are you finding like people? Because I've had people call me and they're like, they'll be spayed right when I get them, and I'm like, no, like they're only 8 weeks.
Right. And people, I think, are learning more, and we're more pituitary. I mean, because people are more responsive now. They're responsible, I guess. Especially if they've gotten like a purebred dog. But
They tend to be educated.
Yeah, they're not going to
That's
just
good.
let them run loose around the neighborhood,
Yeah.
impregnate the whole neighborhood. So, yeah.
So that makes sense. Because tell me, didn't you say originally in school, I think you told me a long time ago, that basically when you were taught about spay and neuter, it was mostly population control?
Yeah.
So,
I mean, there were medical reasons. I mean, there's, pyometras or uterine infections and mammary tumors, and prostate issues with male dogs. So there are medical reasons to do it, but it depends on the breed. It depends on large versus small,
sure.
what the people, what their
Right.
dog's lifestyle is too, and it affects their weight. And
Yeah.
we used to think, well, just spay and neuter because that's going to solve
Mhm.
everything, but now we're seeing sometimes
It's
causes
creating more
problems.
problems. Yeah. That's what I
Yeah.
wonder. I kind of feel like it's a use it or lose it thing though. Like,
Mhm.
because I'm finding even with dogs, I used to think that having the males intact their entire life was probably the healthiest thing. But I think you run into this, not you particularly, but horses, like
Or males, some of them will
Yeah.
have prostate problems. I mean,
because they're not using it.
I wonder, I don't know if it's, I don't know, I've never thought about it
Well,
before.
my understanding is it's the
Yeah.
gland that creates the ejaculation, right?
Right.
So if
Yeah,
we're not doing that, I don't think that's engaged when they go to the bathroom, right? It's
no,
different
it's not,
muscles.
no.
So I kind of wonder.
If that's why some dogs have prostate.
They always
issues.
tell men to continue to keep
Oh,
busy as they get
Did
older
not know that
because
was
it's good for the prostate.
part of okay, yeah.
So I know, little interesting
Thank
conversation.
you.
Breeding gets a little sticky sometimes, but it kind of made me think because I did have a dog that was intact and they had some complications. It was starting to almost fill with fluid, the prostate.
Oh,
And so they just said, hey, just neuter,
yeah.
So,
Or they'll get.
It's in there though, or does it just, because it's not in, like, you're not removing the prostate, right? You're just,
No.
yeah,
You're
it just hangs out.
Well, so you're taking the testicles, so the source of testosterone is gone, and that's kind of what
That's what
control
grows
the prostate.
prostate.
Yeah,
Yes, that makes a lot of sense.
yeah. So the prostate just sort of
Mhm.
shrinks up and
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
that makes sense, because it
Yeah.
needs it to sustain its size.
Yeah.
Okay, this all makes so much more sense. Great conversation to have with Bill
Yes.
later.
Use it or lose it. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's like what happened with the girls, the family show, right? That could be a
Yeah.
huge issue,
Yeah.
And so, do you run into that frequently? They make it seem like such a giant deal in the breeding world, and I do. We feel this back-to-back breeding makes sense.
Yeah.
Because it prevents all
Prevents
those
it,
issues.
yeah. We see a fair amount. I mean, maybe once every couple of months.
Oh,
We'll
that's actually
see.
kind of more frequent than I
Yeah.
would think.
Yeah.
And what do you find it? Or how old are they usually?
They're usually a little bit older, like 6, 7.
Okay.
That seems, over that. Yeah. So when they're younger, it doesn't seem to be much of an issue.
Right.
And then like the mammary tumor thing too, like that's older dogs, and it seems like that's more. Let's see a lot of Chihuahuas and the smaller breeds that are more prone to that.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I think again, it depends on.
A little bit of maybe genetics.
Yeah.
I wonder sometimes the lifestyle of people who have like a Chihuahua, like, are they going to have a lifestyle where the dog's eating different foods or isn't getting the exercise, or
Right.
sometimes I wonder how much that factors in.
Yeah. Well, it does for people, I would imagine it.
I don't know. Do you see more doodles? Are they still pretty
They're still
popular?
pretty- yeah.
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 That's good. Any like when I look at it from a breeding perspective, I mean, we have a ton of doodles in our community, and they're really good breeders. They really care. But it is like so much more complicated. There's just so many more variables. Do you
When
find
you're taking
like,
different breeds, you mean?
well,
Yeah.
yes, you have that, and then if you do second generation, now
yeah.
you're like, you could get a quarter that's mostly like one parent, the other parent, so you have that kind of issue.
Yeah, true, that's true.
Do you see any complications with those in particular?
No, not that I could think of.
No,
Yeah.
pretty good.
They're like most large breed dogs. I mean, you can have issues with like orthopedic stuff like
Sure.
knees, but nothing. Yeah, nothing.
I also
specific.
find the poodles are, I was
Yeah.
joking with, a girlfriend who's a doodle. We were just thinking that doodle breeder, she thought, poodles are just vanilla. Like they kind of just go with everything. They're not.
We'll
like,
take up the flavor of whatever.
Yeah, like they're good at so many things. They're super athletic.
Yeah.
They're smart.
That's true. Yeah.
So it
Their
makes
hair
it,
is except for the grooming side of things.
right.
Yeah.
And so I mean, in a way, they kind of tend to take on the traits of the other breed that they're bred with, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
And then
As long as they're good traits that they're taking
That's
on.
fair.
So,
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
That's fair. Yeah. So but it's interesting. But yeah, I didn't know if they were too popular down here. I don't see a whole bunch of them,
you see
but
a fair number. I
you
guess.
see a
Yeah.
bit. Right. Thank you so much.
Sure.
I really appreciate it. It was fun.
Thanks,
and,
Julie. No, yeah.
you always have such good insights. So.
I don't know about that. But
Oh, totally. We had more like you out there.
No. The profession wouldn't appreciate that. Yeah.
No,
Probably not.